Hello, and thank you for being here. I will just kind of read out what, for the archive, what this panel is thematically doing, and then I will be the first reader, then Matvei, and then, A multilingual experience decentralizes a singular origin, turning languages pliable and open to exchanges and conversations between culturally contextual milieus as though mirrors for one another, layering multitudes of encounters and definitions. Edgar Garcia asserts, the deep structure of language, the condition that all languages share, is not a deterministic relativism, but rather the ability to constantly reformulate what the structure of language is amidst its present context. Language becomes a breathing entity, formed and formulated by all of its entries into action of the past, present, and future tenses, as though a constant reassemblage. Three poets and translators working in Russian, English, German are Krasnoper, Matvei Yankelevich, and Olga Mikolaivna. We will offer our interpretations of work and multilingual poetics through form, sound, translation, and collaborative practices. So, I had a little bit of a, not a real meltdown, but like 2 weeks prior where I was like, I don't want to read about any of this. So I brought a new form. I think about multilingual writing as a kind of conversation. This conversation can take multitudes of forms: language with language, time duration, negative with the positive, the unspoken with the written and said, poetics and visual art and elements. Rosemary Waldrop describes Edgar Garcia's writing in lavish absences as fragmentary mosaic making. She writes, Edmund Chavez's challenge to the writer is to engage through the nearly infinite space of language in a dialogue with its negative, our final limits. Silence, the void, or if you like, our metaphor for these God. The challenge to the translator is to engage through the limited space of a text in a dialogue with the tension between two languages, a tension that in its gaps lacks in its non-overlap, non-identity, constantly pointing towards the same limits. So like Paul Celan, whose compound words drive his poetics, Chavez looks for meaning in the apophatic. Although Chavez's process is negatives and Celan's can be considered as layering or accumulation and positive, both poets are looking for deeper meaning in the limitations of existence available to them. So the following piece is a 3-part exploration of sight's relationship to language and time. Time's changing parameters driving language based on Carrie Mae Weems' photograph, The Edge of Time. Do you guys know the photographer Carrie Mae Weems? Yeah, so it's based on the photograph called The Edge of Times. Part 1. Past, looking at Rome. Future, outside of the frame, the unknown, simmering, unbound. The perfective aspect lives within the past and the unknown, yet fulfilled future, i.e., I will read the whole book. I will have built a city. In the speculation lies a completion. Roman structures before her. The city has been built. Its ancient properties currently focused on, pondered, from her place, perspective. On the threshold of the present, where the figure stands, but she's looking at all that she faces. A photographed event and looking, the process will never be complete. Photograph, and action still. She's looking at the past and she continues to do so. Proceed. The action is imperfect. Perfectare from Latin per, completely, and facere, to make, do. Carrie Mae Weems' photograph, The Edge of Time, Ancient Rome, confronts the power and ideologies embedded in architectural edifices, the past coloniality continuum. By facing state power, the figure in the photograph is not swallowed up by it. She's her own subject among the monumental marble. I was looking, passively, onto the city. I looked onto the city, the past and I, are finished. Theme. I took a glance, I peeked, the act of looking, an active continuity. Her back is to the camera, the past behind her, the past in front of her, the past a present, an enveloping mod, a temporal cloak. She looks, she looks, the action in the present tense continuum. The future is completely unknown. Even in divination, an outcome is subject to change due to an adjusted action. The future continues. Time does not stop. It will proceed into an uncertain direction, uncharted waters. Although it may look like a progression, a movement from one event to the next, it isn't. A pattern circulating, atoning for actions of before. This isn't biblical. There's not an end time, no pure destinations, perseverating and bobbing. The future can only be based on what is known of the past, based on what we know. Our etymology, derivative of epistemology, or is it the other way around? The sheen of past tense activity. Our knowledge of it sometimes is just a record, such as a mark or a documentation of memory. It nonetheless eternally changes. A go, an element of stop, a command, a description. I'm going, motion towards some diaphanous destination in the present tense. Its temporality very quickly changes from past to future. I know I can take another step because I took the last. This step is familiar. I take another one because the previous one was a success. I know I will get to the destination because I have gotten there before, taken the route. Taking step in the present tense. In English, I may not use the perfective aspect without a subject of the sentence. The subject may not be implied. The verb, unlike Russian, is not conjugated based on its preceding pronoun or noun. Everyone acts in unison, finishes the action. The present participle permits such omissions only for a general regard, i.e., looking at ancient Rome, she, he, they, we, or I, is, are, am. The missing piece, to be. To be, looking at ancient Rome. To be, alive. To be, continuing a solid action. To be is to go on, proceed in a timely or untimely fashion in time. Destination undetermined, yet the past has proceeded. Part 2. Pupils expanding and retracting, irises in motion, the imperfective state. My cat's snake eyes dilate as he pounces on prey. In some cases, the prey is a live mouse he bats around the room. In this game, I have become a witness, and perhaps witnessing does not include action, but perhaps a witness does. So I catch the mouse in the jar and I let it outside, locating the cat from pursual. To see, to truly seize, to assert against a ricochet of ease and superficial tidings, may be the only gift, the apple of one's eye. In this case, there are multiple deriding eyes. Defecation of eyesight, perceptive and captive qualities championed by the object's epistemological projection, turns the projected upon onto canvas an object, an apple. Hildegard de Bingen had visions that were projected into her eyes. To project is also to forecast. Predictions coerced into a light thrown upon a subject matter, an ability to perceive it. Her visions were cast down by God. She needed to speak them, finish the procession, and move and go in silence. She became ill. And if the straying articulation wrapped in gusts, quandaries, and made piss quarries, drilled into earth, gaping eye holes. Bingen's visions were closely related to speech. The word speech in Russian is rich, an invocation of water. In close perimeters to a river, a fluvial state, speech flows, and so do brooks, streams, and watery pathways. They continue, picking up headway in the thaw of spring, retracting again, dilating. As seen before her, as seen as though on a stage, a spectacle to be watched. However, the scene when my neighbors are having another conflict is heard. How to name a scene of the ears? A libretto? Teja Cole writes, like speech which leaves no marks in the air, the arrangement of our bodies leaves no mark in space. Scene, the past tense. When Paul Celan wrote, "No one bear witness for the witness is standalone. The witness is its own line. To bear witness is to see, to be a part of the event, to be away on the sideline. But this too is a witnessing, to have seen, to see from afar is to witness. A collective responsibility is charted. To see, to be subjected onto an accumulation of other eyes of the past tense." Paul Celan drowned himself in the river Seine, submerged to the bottom of the flow. Although it is likely that the scene and its aura is enclosed in dramatic connotations, it is likely to believe the scene as an unfolding of an event, the rapture of time. In time. The scene before my eyes, that which I see. Part 3. She stands, looking at the past.
Thank you, Olga. Thank you also, Olga and Ina, for inviting me to participate in this. I'm Matvei Yankelevich, and I'm going to read a few different things. And I'm going to read from Cristina Perez Diaz's book first because she couldn't make it to join us for this panel, and her book is coming out May 1st. She's in the midst of just having had a kid and doing a bunch of readings for this new book, and it's kind of like back in San Juan at the moment. But and I was going to describe this project, which I actually am also the publisher of this book for winter edition. So there are copies if you want to take a look at the book fair. And the book deals with what's called From the Founding of the Country, and it's two lovers in bed founding a country, and it's also a mix or collage of Walt Whitman meeting a queer Puerto Rican poet who hasn't been translated into English, Manuel Ramos Otero. And she's thinking of how to create like a foundation myth in a certain way, and also the sort of difficult, disastrous love affair between the colonized and the colonizer. So I'm just going to read two sections from two poems from the first section. And the last section of the book, it's one long poem, but the last section is all in Spanish, also not translated into English. But I'm going to read from the first section called The Garden of Limbs. Is the mic okay? Can you hear me? Okay. Limbs of each other, limbs to be remembered by no one, we alone, we grew a garden. Every dead Sunday we grew a garden of limbs, every dead Sunday a garden of daggers in our thighs. Not to be remembered that every Sunday we neglected this labor of founding a country and stayed in bed, each growing limbs inside the other, and not only on Sundays, all week long for years. We neglected the task repeatedly. Even now, to be honest, we are really just lying in bed. And number 11. You'll hear the Whitman. I celebrate it and celebrate myself, dust. And here we are standing on this spot with our souls. On this spot I stand, sideways, curious to see what we will found next. On what shore will your body dwell? In what cave will you ease from me the darkness? I see clearly now I've sweated through fogs in search of your eyes, grass, of your pale green kisses, dust, of your grassy lips, the shore of your breath. And you have breasts, milky breasts. I really like it when they are erect. I am erect. I am myself a jutting rock. Where I am standing now, from where now I turn my gaze away to the vast landscape, our country, our own country, dust. So that's Cristina Perez Diaz. And I'm going to read a little sampling of different ways I think I engage with the sort of subject of this panel, although not super directly in terms of like a obvious mixing of languages, but I think you heard also in some of the phrasing in Christina's work, this kind of tension between like a normalized, normal English and a kind of twistedness through Spanish, which is part of the thing about writing from a two language space, right? I'm going to read from an early book of mine called Boris by the Sea, which engages with a kind of like space of coming to language, also kind of immigrating into language. And this, some of it I wrote by writing poorly in Russian, which is my first language but not my main language, and then translating it with a kind of deference to syntax and things like that that you would normally maybe revise or like interested in what it did to the English. So Boris found out from the window long before us what fate is. Fate is nothing, and the thingness around us circles like crows as magpies. It was never as beautiful at the cemetery as when you were dying. Boris had no parents, he appeared, or maybe he just doesn't remember them. He simply had no faith in the past, and he didn't go there. Another piece from this book takes a kind of different approach by kind of, and I'm going to read a couple pieces like this that use a bit of Russian literature in a kind of, I would say, an estranged or made strange way. I'm just going to check the time. Boris wasn't sure where he was going. For a moment, he thought that he was in the middle of a sentence. The next minute, he found himself walking down an empty street. Just then, he was not trampled, barely, by a harnessed mare pulling along a crumbling carriage. Suddenly, Boris became very old, and wise, too. And then, as it happens some of the time with old and wise men, Boris fell over dead. At this point, the story comes to a point, and that point is too narrow for the story to pass through. Okay, I'm going to read another piece that from this book, Some Worlds for Dr. Vogt, which borrows not only a image and steals a sentence from Arkady Dragomoshenko, Petersburg, you could say Petersburg language poet, but that's a little bit too easy a translation in a way into our poetics. But important for his role in kind of in the 80s particularly and 90s for bringing a kind of having a dialogue with Lynn Higinian and so forth. So, and creating this kind of dialogic space with American avant-garde poetry and Russian avant-garde poetry at that time. So I'm taking something from him here, but also his manner, in a sense, is in this poem. Pose a world as a tautology or an equilibrium, a state of balance or static, something like the river flows, already redundant. What, in fact, is its shape? For instance, someone gave you this beer so you can't do anything about it. You can drink it as long as you stand relatively still, describing to yourself the view or the way the tree trunks lay in the northern woods, leafless then, save for the ground cover, so that vision is not a noun, but the unachievable form of the verb reading, legere, Greeks choose to speak. Romans pick through the ruins. All this is well known, but bears repeating. Cherry blossoms in the rain, the season's emotional efficacy, to chew the crust, another way to bite down. Even the shapes of arrows, you know, are finite. And I just remembered that there's also a Russian idiom in there that gets transformed into or like butted up against in an awkward way as an English idiom, so that they no longer either make sense as idioms. But anyway, another manner, I suppose, or possibility in a kind of bilingual space is just to include translations as if they're your own poems in your books of poems, which I did here. Mandelstam's Silentium, 1910. She is not born as yet. She's word and music both, and thus the indestructible bond of all that's living. The sea's breasts calmly rise and fall. Day shines bright as it were mad. The lilac pallor of the spume caught in a murky azure vessel. But let my mouth attain that primary dumbness, a crystallized note, pure from the start. Remain in sea foam, Aphrodite, and word return to music, and heart grow shamed of heart, melding with the origin of life. So that translation is actually a correction to Paul Schmidt's translation of that poem, which truncates almost 3/4 or a quarter or maybe half of the poem. So it felt like it needed a rejoinder, but it also is obviously a poem about language returning to music, becoming this space or sound before language, right? So I think that is also part of the multilingual world, right? And a kind of translational, Benjaminian translational world in some ways. I was going to read, this one. And then I'm going to read two newer things after this. This is very different mode. And perhaps dealing more with the insertion of, or the problem of the lyric I in the foreign language, right? I suppose that's writing in the lyric persona, writing in the foreign or adopted or not quite their language, I suppose, or idiom or tradition. A 20 in my pocket from you who felt sorry, same as 222 in Frank's pale 58 knuckles. Spent some on a slice, New York temptation, then did some sulking at the bookstore. It's late and life has not begun. The sequel's out and I haven't even already seen Planet Earth 1. Leftovers till payday. Not really a job, but I hold it down. Almost touched your sleeve. Why would I do that after you told me I was attracted? Denigration is all right sometimes. Let me be a kid in your arms for an evening in Mexico City. When it's over, say thanks for being around to smile at. I was around the first time, and I'm still around to see your retrospective. My fellow citizens take care in visions under daddy's boot. Lefties who won't let their kids read Twain, but can't ban Ayn Rand. Yes, history slides into home, safe. Let's have a Coke and forget it. Bat at a ball, gnaw on a leg. Green hills of Iowa scroll along to their blood conclusions. When asked about a living wage, they laughed in my face. I felt like David Schubert on the bus through Midtown. A poem once a month, not bad for nonprofit. roll it, not fold it. Next up, the cantos, Maximus, and all that. As a poet, I'm fortunate to know in the audience tonight says, fuck everybody. It's more IRL in native mouth, which is being a poet. Rogers and Hart, they say, not Hart and Rogers. Who says? Typos at our every turn await the innocent of language. What's foreign when I am at home, save me. The vinegar soaks up the bad, but not the good. How does it know? Sometimes I Google the word website. Said Baraka, find yourself, then kill it. Which reminds me, Denby reading Dante's Paradiso as the pills kick in. No rhyme was coming to the mind, and nothing good enough to keep was in the notebooks when "And the snow blinks down to winter," wrote Joan Murray. And I think I have just enough time to read these two newer pieces. Maybe I'll start with this newer thing. I mean, newer meaning like I wrote one poem this year and one poem last year. Okay, so this is also a kind of intertextuality with a, particularly with a poem that I was spending a lot of time translating in the last couple of years, which is Mandelstam's Verses on the Unknown Soldier, which is a kind of apocalyptic vision of World War II at that point, even though it hasn't happened yet, or a kind of world war that's coming. It was written in 1937, and I guess I won't say more, but anyway, it kind of, if you might, I don't know, it's in there somewhere a little bit, but it's maybe playing a little bit with the idea of farce and a kind of Baudelarization of a poem that is very important modernist poem, but it's called Farce Farinaceous. And the constraint also is that it has no F's in it, except for the title. A demi-century with nothing to show through even wet t-shirts, a rootless cosmopolite lacking dentistry. When I was younger, I came to mind to an eagle up yonder, went silent on Substack, turned the corner, then it was autumn. Tried some shoes on and bottom. Say, that a dime in your pocket, or is it a loony? Cut a hole to climb in, a path close to kilter. Back in the saddle, I was riding English, had it by the horns right where I bid it. Some jerk caught my math homework. Lost each gamble since then to the rear view. Wrung my mitts to mint rhymes. Spilled a tear on every comma in order do or don't burn it. It's a poem. The International's my only Valentine, and sorrow's my IOU. Now the hawk harks not the hawker, and in the verdigris the viper. Turn right here, porter, as my other luck stuck like a duck cooked to order in a rut, in the silt-slick wheel-spinning muck, like the pantry moth to that light's bright blackout whack. Even pawned my old rucksack. Can you complete this caper? A smoker and a vapor were riding a tandem when you wake up and it's 9/11. Punch the clock, check the rain. In music's wake, the bombs, and in the bomb's wake, more music. Well, there goes the hood and the hair salon. Oh, sad as snow on wrought iron escape. Poem, stand trial. Saloon doors swing wide-eyed. Order, all rise. Signed, sealed, and delivered the verdict. Your liver. And who's to blame? Brave or Raven, Pushkin or Poe? Costs up on to-go cups, so won't you ladle those dreidels into my amber sockets? Mind my eyes widening circles, glaucous like grapes, hellish as arguses, or ghouls, gorgons in gardens where twerking paths spill their colons on pitiless suns, rock Hades cradles. And pitiless suns rock Hades cradles, unmown graveyard grasses swoon, unknown ombre in his tomb. Applaud the multitudes corralled to mourn him, burning to ash, turning to pumpkin. Justice carts around a shop, carts out the door, but the wheels lock at the lot's limit. Christ, no, he lets slip the salt. Don't look back now, you hear. Now broken sprawls the hombre's lance. In outed lights, last rites are spoken like Dutchman's yeast. In pantries, time mislaid, the poem will not rise to open others' eyes. 'Twill rot, lay its narrow, clever quest in zinc and leaden vest to rest in dead-end dust, and on its chest array its heavy cross, the dross, the average day, and on its supple shoulder, debt. Ring bells, bring on world's end, and last gallows swallows, send in the wagging dogs, bull markets bear the meat, that gnaws bones to the bone. Come down, six-winged drones, 60 eyes in each wing, so's in every cell our timeshare prison. No law is obeyed, save eat or be eaten, as very coarse rains smooth out stones. Arm in arm with my brethren, mixing sixes and sevens, we sign on the line with unsevered hands. I swear on my brow, my polycarbon passport, hoary birthright to Head Start and hail I swear on my brow, my polycarbon passport, hoary birthright to Head Start and heil over heart. That's all, folks, that's all, folks, that's all, folks, that's all, folks. Renounce the unknown hombre in his unknown cops. Throw down the poem's earthly chain. Give way to stars. But then I remember, slip my mind to bring socks. And lastly, another poem, a kind of play in between languages. It's called No Home Poem. To say my eyes are failing, say my sight is failing. To say I have no home, say I'm far from home. Say it's a long way to go. Say there's nowhere to go. Say, they say, go back where you came from. You don't have to go home, but you can stay here. Say, they say, go where your eyes take you. Go on, they say, get. To say I have no home, say my eyes are failing. To say world without end, say war without end. Talk of peace in the kitchen, crumbs they say from the rich man's table. Go ahead, talk all you want. Peace talks, they say, are off the table. To say, can't you hear me? Say, speak English? To say, what language do you speak? Say, you come from beyond the hill. Whose home is this hovel? Who's coming to dinner? Whose side are you on? Who's going to clean up this mess, Pushkin? To say, anybody home? Say, winter is on the doorstep. To say, nobody's home. Say, just us mice. How do you say doorstep? Over there, they say doorstep with threshold. How do you say winter? Over there, they say winter with a Z. Thank you so much, and welcome Ina Krasnoper.
Hi. So generally speaking, I'm a bilingual poet. The base of my poems is either in English or Russian, rarely German. Some poems are mixed between all three. Even when a poem is written in a single language, that language is influenced by the presence and use of the others. Sometimes the starting point for a poem is a pun, a juxtaposition, an observation that develops further. Cross-linguistic influence applies also to my first language, Russian, considering bidirectional transfer. I occasionally translate other poets' work into Russian and English. With Russian, I usually need an outside eye. In some cases, that can be the author themselves. For example, we worked with Matvei on some of his poems. For translations into English, I work with collaborators. And I'll start with my own poem written in Russian with small bits in Ukrainian. The translation includes French and German. It was done by me and Eugene Stashevsky, published by Eulalia Books in this chapbook oversight. In the beginning was a word, and the word was set word, and the word has fallen. Then there was said I walked over said I, and after said egg, and was hid. Then said you appeared, and it appeared to be good, but said two, it wasn't. For some said you was said I, but so it went, they were upset. Then a word came to set them straight, but they couldn't be set, so for to set them, no word will do. Doesn't even begin to describe it. Whilst the word was a fallen, an apple of the eye hid the head, blocking eye sight. The sight was worse than the word. At the end of the sight, it came to an end. Sight put the inside outside, it fell for. Sight and word fell, it was fall all around. Suppliers ran out of supplements. Sentries were set to look out of entry boxes. Not one said a word, or it wasn't heard. One could hear, fill in the form, you're still a human being. Me, not though, I'm setting out, sweeping out of my way, dragging a stool, and it creaks. It does creak, hides a crack here and there. A crack is disunion. It comes from the word one. One was in the beginning. One ate oneself, then ate seti, clung, cleaved, bound hands with hands. Раскованы. I continue with my English-based poems from my first collection, Distanz. It's a German word for distance and Tanz for dance. It's published by Belize Books. I have a strategy of including glosses in the right margin for foreign lines or words. It provides some support, but I'm also interested in giving this fragment some autonomy so that they could be mini poems on their own. And there are a few exceptions when these glosses wouldn't work practically or conceptually, and I would start with such an exception. However, я не смогла открыть бутылку для Глинтвейна. However, открыла просто бутылку. Я открыла просто бутылку. However, Не стала разбираться, как отделить пробку от штопора. Я положила пробку со штопором на полку, и там они и лежат. Я открыла документ, however, обычно я пишу на смартфоне. My phone is dumb, however, I don't think we can соревноваться in that. I couldn't remember the right word for compete, had to look it up on my smartphone. However, compete might sound like a word, it's not the word I was trying to recall. As I recall, I first wrote вспомнить for recall and gave up on вспомнить. Due to the insufficient persistence of consequence on the part of the author, the reader is asked to follow the subsequent. I'm not as smart as my phone, yet I do understand something when people write about translingualism. People write about translingualism, however, not many of them write poetry in a non-Latin alphabet, such as that of Russian. Russian is an imperialist language, however, it can be marginalized and exoticized. However obscure the message, it would be broken down for an external audience. However outside an audience is, it may still be within hearing. However hearing an audience is, it won't grant audience to many. However much you deliver, some misread between here and there. However much is misread, so ever much is granted thorough attention. However packageable your poetry is, nothing I have is of consequence here. As much as you wish to remain, you have to move. As much as you wish to move, you have to remain. So many boxes you packed for the language Umzug. Put on your language Anzug. Baby, it's a long move. Im voraus, impact, implication. I am implied in this implication. In this намерение, мера, пресечение, сечь, приближение, прибавление, to come, to coming, to welcoming, too much of a well one can hear in a well, its borders are welcoming the sound. Sound bounces back, backlash, backstage, back, stagnierend, to stash in a stock, squish oneself in a stock, stack onto, accumulate, акупунктура, аккумулятор, зарядка, за, рядом, за, хеланс. Is that for sure? Yes, I'm sure. Are you sure? I am sure. Is that for sure? Yes, for sure, that's for sure. If it weren't for sure, it would be for somebody else. Is it for somebody else? Один за всех и все за everyone. Which one? Wenn hast du nachgeahmt? I did go to an Amt by means of eating an ant. Are you sure I ate an ant? And if I shan't, go talk to my aunt. If I hadn't proceeded with the eating procedure, I wouldn't have been able to reach an ant, to pick an act. I wouldn't have turned the corner. I might have reached the fork of Shura for sure. I heard myself speaking. I heard myself. I heard myself speaking. I heard it myself. I heard it my herself, my himself, my part of my him herself spoke. I spoke of myself with a shady self. Self-seal wasn't possible, no salvation, fear, fugba. It enacted a fugue to a fige. I got myself some fatigue in hearing, heard no more, heard partially, no part after no part. It has parted me and left with some parts. I was departed among parts. They wouldn't gather. They would build a wood, a wooden wood with no forest there. I would not hear myself. I could not have heard. I could have heard it, the hearing alone. Who would have heard, repeat after me, who would have passed by the outpost, who would have posted a brief out there after hearing something left out alone. Do you give more time to a reader who reads herself in translation? She and her stand double. Do you see double? Is translation a stand? Is it line auf einer besetzbaren Matratze? Is it a double bed? Is it a bed double or nothing? Did you set a privacy wall? Is there a template? Is there another to follow? Are you late for the next reader? Does the space support the separation? Are we attached to a two-sided port? Do you depart from a point of origin? Do you trace yourself from your point of arrival? Is another language your rival? Do you race for both? Pretext, предтеча, preposition, excuse. I suggest you read half as much, twice. I suggest you take twice as much time. I suggest you stay in the middle and mind the audience. We might have tongues of suggestions, adjusting to tongues, mute, mutilation, grain, gain, against the grain. Okay. So should I just finish? Once more. Can I trust you halfway? Can I trust you half season? As of today, can I trust you with my left half? Will you take half tongue for my half? The half that goes off course around the hour when no one has a turn, when people are not zebs to stand, sami nie swai, when they do not stay by the door, hanging to hand over. Thank you.